This is Algebra 1, Lesson 35 Practice. We're going to be factoring the GCF and canceling. So let's start by factoring the GCF. What do we have? We have a term and we have another term. What do they have in common? Well, let's look at this 15 and this 35. What common factor do they have? I would say they have a 5 in common, right? Because this one is 5 times 3 and this one's 5 times 7. 5 is their common factor. Now let's look at the A's. I have an A squared and I have an A in a different order, but that's okay. What do they both have? Well, they both have an A. Let's look at the Z's. Z to the 8th, Z to the 5th. They both have Z to the 5th. This one has more, right? It has Z cubed also times Z to the 5th. Then we're going to, well, that's it. There's our GCF. Because that's, oh wait, no, they wanted us to factor it, didn't they? I was going to stop. Okay, they want us to factor, which means turn this addition, because remember we say subtraction is adding the opposite, right? So we're going to turn this sum into a factored expression. We have two terms, one's here and one's here, so we're going to have two terms inside. And we see we have a subtraction or adding a negative, adding the opposite. All right, what am I going to need to multiply this term by here so that I end up with this first term? Well, 5 times what will give me 15? So 3. A times what will give me A squared? A. Z to the 5th times what will give me Z to the 8th? You may need to think about that. Think of it like this. This would have to be Z to the what? Well, whatever is here, when you add 5 to it, you get 8. So it's got to be a Z cubed. So this is a Z cubed. Okay? We've taken care of the first term. Let's look now at the second term. We're going to multiply this by this to get this one. All right. 5 times what will give me 35? Going to need a 7 there. A times what will give me A? Just a 1, right? So we don't have to write that, okay? And then Z to the 5th times what will give me Z to the 5th? Already got it. We don't have to multiply. And that would be your answer for A. It is factored out now. All right, great. Let's look at B. Erase that. B, we're going to look. We've got 3 terms. And what do they all have in common? I bet you see something, don't you? They've all got a 2 in common. All right, let's look at these A's. A squared, A cubed, A cubed. They've got an A squared in common. Now let's look at these B's. B squared, B squared, B to the 6th. They all have a B squared in common. All right. There's our GCF. Now they want us to factor it. So we've got to write the other factor. Here's your first factor. This is going to be your second factor. It's written as a multiplication. I'm going to need 3 terms because that's what that one has. There's 1, 2, 3. Okay? I'm going to be multiplying this GCF by this first term, and I want to get this. 2 times 1 will give me 2. A squared times 1 will give me A squared. B squared times 1 will give me B squared. I'm going to need a 1 right here. See how I did that? Now we're going to need to multiply this term. This factor. Whoa. Times this term to give me this term. 2 times 1 will give me 2. A squared times A will give me A cubed. B squared times 1 will give me B squared. Great. We're rocking along here. Now we're going to need to multiply this factor times this term to be able to get this third term up here. 2 times 1 will give me 2. A squared times a will give me a cubed. B squared times b to the 4th will give me b to the 6th. If you're messing up on your powers, just keep practicing. You will get it. All right, I need to make that a little clearer. B to the 4th. Okay, and we will circle that. That's in factored form. Now, let's change up a little bit. We're going to simplify, and this is where we're going to cancel. And they give us a little hint. They say, hey, factor if you need to, right? Because we don't have a multiplication here. Canceling, which is what we're going to need to be doing, is division. And it is the inverse operation of multiplication. And you cannot cancel if you don't have a multiplication. It needs to be written in factored form. So let's look at the numerator. I see two terms, and they both have a 4 in common. So let's factor that out. Okay? 4 times something is going to give me this 4. So 4 times something here is going to give me this 4. It's going to need to be a 1. Right? And then minus, I'm going to have another term. This 4 times this term is going to give me 4x. So it must be an x. So let's look at that. And we can distribute that to make sure we're right. 4 minus 4x. We got it. Now, that's your numerator. In the denominator, you have a 4. Now, let's see if we do have a product here. Is it factored? This times this whole thing, right? And then we have this, and we can think of it as times a 1. So we do have a multiplication in the numerator and a multiplication in the denominator. Do they have a common factor? They do. So we can cancel those, which is, remember, means we're dividing by 4. So in the numerator, we have 1 times 1 minus x, which is just 1 minus x. And in the denominator, we have 1 times 1, which is just 1. But the simpler way to write it would just be 1 minus x, because a 1 in the denominator does not change the value. Okay, and our last one, D. You're doing a great job. This is one of my favorite lessons, by the way. I hope after these, and you're practicing, I hope it becomes one of yours as well. All right, we don't have a multiplication in the numerator. We need to rewrite it as a product, which means we're going to need to factor it, because 2 factors multiplied together, that's going to give me a product, right? What do these 2 terms have in common? I see that they both have a 7 and they both have an x. So that's my greatest common factor. So inside the parentheses, the other factor, what am I going to need to multiply 7x by to get 7x? Just going to need a 1 there, right? Now, what do I need to multiply 7x by to get this minus 49x? Going to need a minus here, going to need a 7 here, and this was, I think I said x, but it's x squared, so I'm going to need an x here. And again, you can just multiply that back out, distribute it, 7x minus 49x squared. We got it. Great. In the denominator, we have 7x. And it's like a times 1, if you want to think of it that way. So we have a product in the numerator, a product in the denominator. Do they have a common factor? And yes, they do. We can treat them individually. And there we go. So we have 1 times 1 times 1 minus 7x, which is just 1 minus 7x. And in the denominator, we have 1 times 1 times 1, which is just a 1. But we don't have to write that, because a denominator of 1, we can do better, can't we? 1 minus 7x. Good job.